Zoran Mamdani has won. He is now mayor-elect of New York City. How are we all feeling about this? Are we as excited as New Yorkers appear to be?
Disappointed but not surprised, I think.
Yes.
He seemed to be a clear front-runner, and given the demographic change in New York, I'm not necessarily surprised that it's gone that way. He basically advertised himself as, those white people with all the stuff? I'm the guy who's going to give you their stuff. And it turns out people like to vote for that if they want to steal white people's stuff.
Yes. And it turns out that many in New York do these days. I will also just say, before we actually get into the results, there was a tremendous amount of cope online from the right wing when it came to this particular election, right? There seemed to be just an incoherent mess of got years, and they all just fell totally flat. Because one, of course, this is a left that is mostly foreign and doesn't accept the America-specific claims against communism or Marxist-Leninism or jihadism or any of these sorts of things. They don't care. They're third worldists. But second of all, just the fact that you also had this area where they were saying, oh, Cuomo's gaining. No, not really.
Firstly, Cuomo wasn't gaining.
No.
Secondly, Cuomo isn't their guy.
No.
And thirdly, if you've imported the voters, is it really an election? And this is a real point that, look, guys, you're changing your countries too much and you're not going to recover from it if you don't do something about it soon.
I think it's also difficult to be enthusiastic for Cuomo because didn't he move lots of COVID patients into nursing homes or something like that?
Oh, yeah, he was
He's
draconian.
He was draconian, he was a grandma killer, and it was very obvious that the policy was, how can we reduce the pension cost? Oh, let's give them COVID. It was very cynical. It was extremely cynical from Cuomo.
Deeply. And so here we have the result, and as you can see, it was a clear victory of 50% for Mamdani and 41% for Cuomo. And what's more as well, even if Curtis Sliwa here had dropped out, that difference, if you add them together, would still not have supplanted Mamdani. This was a firm victory. And what's more as well, some people were saying, well, at least in Minneapolis that Somalian guy didn't win. Well, not this year, but on current trends, he will. It really is simply a matter of...
He's got haunting physiognomy as well, that guy.
Diabolical.
Genuinely scary.
Yeah. So we should start talking about some of the actual... and also just one in every single district as well. There was not a single outlier in Manhattan, Queens, the Bronx, the rest of them. And so we had 57% of the black vote for Mamdani. We had 52% of the Hispanic vote. We had 62% of the general Asian vote.
I wonder how that would be split between East and West Asian.
Yeah, I am curious about that myself, but don't seem to have that distinction so far. And then 51% of other miscellaneous, basically just non-white voters as well. And what's more as well, you can always trust the women to come out and elect the far-left lunatic. So that's really what we're dealing with here. This is the breakdown. And the fact of the matter is as well that you also have the fact that you can always trust Navarra media to analyse their own victories incorrectly. Because, as they say here, by rejecting identity politics and embracing class solidarity, basically Mamdani was able to win. Well, as you've already pointed out, Josh, this has nothing to do with class whatsoever. I'm sure that the very term working class was not really in the lexicon of many of the third worlders who've arrived here, right? It's a very Western view of society.
It's a very, ironically enough for Navarra media, a very British way of looking at it. Like, we tend to view things through class a lot more than they do in America. And generally speaking, middle class is considered quite a broad church, so it's not nearly as divisive a thing in people's perception as they claim it to be.
Right. And what's more as well, you can see here that this was another one going around. Oh, we can't elect a Muslim. Don't you all remember 9/11? Well, it's not It's not amnesia, right? It's the fact that those people who were there on the ground in 9/11 are not so much there now, as you have from this statistic that Leo provides. When you look at the people who were voting for Mamdani, for many of them, I was here 10 years plus, but not born here, 54%. 10 years or less, 82%, right? So it's just pure demographic replacement to rig the system entirely in the same way that it's basically become in London now under Sadiq Khan.
On the 9/11 point, I have to keep repeating this. The biggest shock for the Middle East after 9/11 was that there were no mass expulsions of Muslims. Had it happened the other way around somehow, the sort of reaction from the region would have been just genocidal ethnic cleansing. And people who could afford it, who were Muslims in New York, immediately left because they expected to just be rounded up randomly. That was the expectation. So the idea that after all of this, you get this kind of immigration that allows for this sort of transformation is a shock to the Muslims themselves. And the other point is, when did Mamdani reject identity politics? His whole campaign was that I eat with my hands, and that's who I am, and this is my identity.
Right.
I mean, his
He
campaign
never
slogan
once-
may as well have been, I eat with my hands and I'm brown, vote for me.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So let's just listen to him speak here for just a second about the people he has to thank for the victory.
I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties.
So the point is, of course, this is a victory for the immigrants, but not even just immigrants, not the Irish ones, not even the Italian ones, not the European immigrants, specifically the Third World triumph over New York. Yeah. And I remember growing up, and, because you had a whole number of films coming out in the late 90s and early 2000s where New York was basically treated like the greatest city in the world.
Yep.
I
Right.
thought you were going to bring up Gangs of New York. Where
Oh, I should. I keep seeing that going about. I really need to watch that film, don't I?
Great film, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And long since are those days. But we also have here as well the fact that really, very much in the way that Trump on the right set himself up as someone against the establishment, was able to frame it in that way. You had the exact same thing with Mamdani here. When you've got Trump saying, vote Cuomo to keep this guy out, it gives across the perception that the entire system is against this guy. That he is the one that those big bad billionaires and nasty elites don't want you to vote for. So vote for him. Of course, this isn't actually the case. Where you have, sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, here. Obviously, Alex Soros, son of George, Open Foundation, World Economic Forum, all that, just globalism, right? And so he does have billionaire backers. Most people do. They all have some sort of elite backing. He did keep this one very, very quiet, I will grant you, but that doesn't take away the fact that it is still there. And what's more as well, we raised the point that Alex Soros' wife is literally the chief of staff for Hillary Clinton. So this is not so detached from the swamp as Zoran would perhaps like to make out.
No.
And then I just wanted to go back to this part as well, because there was another angle in this entire thing as well, which was that there was a great amount of push from the Republican side to really paint Zoran as someone who was just a raging anti-Semite. And I'm not saying whether you can or can't make that case. What I am saying is that actually a large proportion of Jews in New York did also come out to vote for him. And these are obviously Jews who are more of the anti-Zionist ilk, but they are still a faction within New York itself. And so really the point is, every single time that the Republicans or the right had something to throw at this guy, there was always something to throw back the other way. And fundamentally, none of the attacks that the Republicans stuck on this guy worked.
No.
None whatsoever. We also have...
They were addressed to a different audience.
Right. Like when Laura Luma here says, oh, just never congratulate a jihadi. It's like, yeah, but his wife looks like this, right? The whole meme about, like, they're going to put a burqa on the Statue of Liberty and everything. It just makes you... I mean, it's funny. I'm not saying it's not funny, but it makes you look ridiculous. It makes you look like you don't have a grasp on the situation, like you don't understand the reality, the true nature of what this guy is.
I think if someone is that left-wing ideologically, it's very difficult for them to be a devout Muslim at the same time. The two things are sort of at odds with one another, but are politically convenient when they're married together. That was a big sigh for us.
They don't make the case for it properly. They don't explain that the Muslim Brotherhood has been writing since the 1990s that their intention is to ally with elements within the United States that are subversive and destructive, and that requires a new jurisprudence to permit Muslims to ally with people who they find distasteful. So you see it here with Muaddin Ali and what's his name, Zach Polanski. They don't understand that this is a deliberate play on the part of the more hardline Muslims. And this is why the Somali community, which is socially extremely conservative, will still support a pro-degeneracy candidate like Ilhan Omar. They don't look into their minds. They don't try to understand them. They don't try to read them properly. So that he is pro these jihadi guys is true. That he himself is a jihadi is not. But he is an instrument. And he is an instrument of the Muslim far right as he is of the general far left. And that's what gets missed in this kind of discussion.
It advances simultaneously all of the minority, well, I say minority, but, you know, majority at this point, but the minoritarian causes,
yes,
and none of them at the same time, none and all, because even though Mamdani is broad enough to appeal to every single one of them, but in a very general way, but it still emboldens them.
Yes.
In their own particular way, as we see here with the Muslims in New York, basically saying, we're done hiding, we're done. This is a correct religion. This is a religion that all of humanity needs to be part of Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home, right?
Absolutely.
It emboldens this.
So NYPD, the New York Police Department, runs one of the best counterterrorism centers in the world because New York is a financial center and is a very cosmopolitan place, and so a lot of global terrorism intersects there. You could imagine what this guy is going to do to their funding and to their ability to actually push back on jihadism. And that was a key part of their role. They would work with the FBI, they would work with the Met Police, they would work with MI5 and MI6. This was a big part of the NYPD counterterrorism department. And with that being under the control of somebody like that, well, yeah, of course these guys are happy. Of course they're happy. This is a genuine victory. It means a lot less police attention. It means a lot less resources dedicated to them because the budget of the New York Police Department is in the billions. And the counterterrorism department does have a very substantial share of that.
What do you think, Pete, about all of this?
Well, I'm not a follower of American politics, and I do think that if the average political nerd in Britain knew even a tenth about their own local politics as what they do in terms of American local politics, we might actually be getting somewhere. But I think there's always, anytime there's a victory like this, there's always this outpouring of histrionics. Oh, he's a jihadi, communist, blah, blah. And you still have to recall that this is still a Western democracy with the leaden bureaucracy that goes with it. And this guy, whatever he said he's going to do that frightens the right, witless, rent controls, he's not going to be able to do even a tenth of that. And we've just had Boris Johnson falling out of, and the Tories falling out of office for having accomplished nothing in their years in office, having squandered a massive majority. Well, we're going to see the left deserting Labour for similar reasons. You've got over 100 majority. Why weren't you passing any laws? Why would you just sit there decaying, not doing anything? Well, and I think if Reform wins the next general election, we will see the exact same dynamic. We will see this political and bureaucratic paralysis. And I don't think it's confined just to Britain. I think Trump's first term, and even though Trump's making a lot of splashed headlines with ICE raids, he's still not deporting anywhere close to the numbers that the right generally believes. And so you take away the hyperbole, and you take away the some people are rubbing their hands with glee at all the images of ICE raids. There's just a fraction of the enforcement that's actually necessary that just isn't happening. So the drama and the histrionics, I just can't get excited about it, because these people, they're going to come to office and have to get down to the real business of governing. They were talking about rent controls. Well, he's only going to be able to affect state-provided properties. He can't start interfering because there's local laws, federal laws, anything this guy thinks he can do. He's the mayor. He's not the king. He doesn't have magic wands, and you can't. And this is my problem with the right at the minute. They're especially the restorationists talking about their great restoration bill. We're going to come in and we're going to wave a parliamentary magic wand, and things are going to happen. No, they're not. They're just not going to happen. And just because you pass a law, if you haven't got the enforcement mechanisms to go and implement those laws, then nothing happens. And this is right across the West. We've got politicians fighting hard, pouring vast amounts of money into getting elected, to sit behind the control panel, and they start pulling levers to discover they're not actually attached to anything.
Yeah,
it's a great point.
Yes, indeed. And that is really, I'll just say it now before we go on, one of the things that really is obviously going to be most interesting to see about Mamdani's victory is just how hard Washington fights him. Because Mamdani talks of Trump-proofing New York, right? Taking the fight to MAGA, basically making this citadel with a moat around it so that the evil bigots can't get into the castle. But obviously, the federal government is the higher power of these two things, without question.
So control the FBI, CIA,
right.
all of that.
So I don't know what quite he expects to manage to do against those.
It's all rhetoric, really.
It's all rhetoric. Of course it's all rhetoric. But
symbolic victory, but this is all of big victories are purely symbolic. Even Trump, the first and second time, we're not actually getting closer to where we need to get to.
And so you have here, of course, people being very, very happy about this. Sharia law starts now, abso-effing-lutely. Anyone here a fan of Sharia law? Do you think these women would actually be fans of it themselves if
Probably
they were on the receiving end of it?
Not with that much hair out and makeup on. I don't think really that would go down particularly well.
No.
My comment on this was that under Sharia law, they could both be sold. And that would be genuinely permissible. So they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. These people are just stupid.
And this is obviously just the true heart of it all. The Mamdani's win is proof of concept of how to fight fascism. Fascists want everybody to be the same. They celebrate conformity, uniformity, sameness, hierarchy. The entire Mamdani campaign was a love letter to diversity. What she terms fascism, I would just simply term particularism, right? The particular character of the United States as it was created by Europeans over many, many centuries. And she's come in, and all these foreigners have come in and gone, my God, we don't see ourselves reflected in this. This is fascism, right? And now, so all of a sudden, we have to take that away from them, that the men who died building the skyscrapers across Manhattan in the 1920s, the people who actually colonized the land in the first place, made it a place where these people even thought to go in the first place, right? That's the point. There wouldn't be a New York without the people that Mamdani basically sets himself against.
I find it really annoying when fascism gets brought up in America, because
I know
it's a political system that's probably most inoculated against it because of the degree of the separation of powers. Even if Donald Trump was a secret evil fascist and did everything in his power to accumulate as much power as possible and wield it like a tyrant, he probably still wouldn't have as much power over America as the average British Prime Minister. And if you look at it from that perspective, it's just pathetic. It's just like you're obviously just neurotic and a weirdo, and you're sensationalizing it, because it's not a problem in the United States at all. It's just used as a slur, isn't it?
But the thing is as well that Mamdani's victory, certainly for the people who voted him in New York, it will basically serve their pathologies, and it will embolden them to think, my God, we're right and we won by being right. And so it's a total validation of everything we believe, everything, all this just nonsense about how like Trump's a fascist and all the things that you're saying. They will see it as total validation.
Because to Pete's point, everybody feels validated whenever they gain a symbolic victory.
Yes.
Nobody actually achieves anything because the system itself as a system is broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I won, I didn't get anything that I wanted. The political system doesn't work. Well, what's the alternative to politics? Violence. So this is important, but for reasons that these people don't understand.
I remember the morning after the referendum, and I'd been campaigning full time for a long time for a referendum, and even ran my own little tiny campaign. And I'd looked at the mechanics of regulation and international trade in a very intimate level of detail. And so while there was this following day jubilation about, yay, we're leaving the EU, we can do all these things, and I'm sitting there thinking, no, none of this is going to happen. And I acquired this reputation for being just a horrible grump because I'm always raining on everybody's parade. But, the Tories coming in saying, oh, we're going to massively deregulate. No, you're not, because these things do need to be regulated. They're based on international standards. And even talking about, there was a story just recently about headlights on cars being too bright. Oh, we're going to do something about that. No, you're not, because these are international standards. We don't have an auto industry, and it's all set by the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, so this body that's nobody's heard of, but is responsible for 90% of automotive regulations. So Parliament can pass all the diktats it likes, but it can't force Mercedes to change its procedures and what it's going to sell on UK markets. And so much is beyond the gift of politicians. And this is it. They don't control half the things they think they do.
That's very true, yeah.
It is. But that doesn't stop them from believing that it's true. And so now what we're going to have foreigners like this woman basically coming to New York for the Gibbs. And obviously those people who are millionaires, or even just successful, basically fleeing from New York to other states as well. And no doubt as well that when Mamdani does put through some of the policies that he wants to implement, and as a result New York is made more dangerous, less harmonious even than it is now, these immigrants who voted him in are not going to go back to their own countries when New York fails. They're going to go to the next American city and the next American city, and so on and so forth. Because really this is a victory for like people like these are four horsemen of the apocalypse here. Obviously you've got Hassan Piker and Mehdi Hassan, the great American thought leader, Mehdi Hassan. Don't even know how I said that with a straight face. Yeah, and the dog shocker. And obviously they're all very, very proud of themselves, but as you can see here, exactly to your point, Peter, about the fact that actually, okay, well now I'm mayor-elect, and I actually have to, I'm not just like an outside activist saying, oh, I want this communist thing and this communist thing. Now that I'm actually in power, can I do these things? And already you can see here basically backtracking on the defunding the police thing. And he's also said as well, oh, and by the way, keep funding us. Because especially if if Washington obviously aren't giving them funds for New York, then obviously the money's going to dry up very quickly. And if all the billionaires leave, who they've basically declared the enemy, then where on earth are they going to get the funds for all of these social programs? Doesn't seem to matter in the slightest, to be honest, because on the one hand, it doesn't really matter how successful the communism is. What matters is that they got revenge on Whitey, right? Is really what it all comes down to at the end of the day. Because, as he says here, New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. Wasn't built by these people, I can tell you that, because
In Manhattan.
this really is what made New York, right? All the people that they hate, right? They act as if New York didn't exist before. There was just a ready-made city for them to come and take over.
When the Dutch arrived, it just sprung out of the ground.
Yeah.
When they dredged up the soil. These skyscrapers just emerged out of the sludge.
New Amsterdam. I mean, hell, I know we literally renamed it, but even the British will give more credit to the Dutch for like what they actually did to build the foundations of New York.
They are the experts of dredging swamps. I mean, you got to give it to them there.
You do.
It's true.
So, just conscious of time. So, yeah, we'll basically end it there. But this is a victory for the Third World in New York. And ultimately, if Washington aren't willing to address the crisis of legal immigration and the natural consequences that it will lead to, then this is the fate of every single city in America, and by extension, your entire country. So you can talk about being America first, but if you can't even identify which of the people in your cities are loyal Americans and which ones are simply third world grifters and chancers, then, well, you're coming up to 250 years of your independence, America. You won't be having another 250 if you don't get on top of this.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.